So
So
is
my thing is, who do we stop? And I say this to y'all a lot. The next issue is we give up layups and threes and second chance. So if they take away one, they don't have to be great on defense. They just have to pick their poison. Am I going to give you the three or am I going to give you the layups? Once they decide which one they're going to take away, ain't nobody going to beat this team.
the problem with that is I think I think that the Nets really just don't try that hard. I think I think they get up 20, they got about 22 versus the Cavs, and then they just started trying stuff. I, who is it that we have to stop, Bam? Who do we have to stop, and what's the most, what is our weakness that makes us vulnerable to losing to this team?
Well, to me, it's less about who we have to stop and what they have to stop. The Nets do two things, they will win this series. Piggybacking off of what Cool said, the Nets give up layups, dunks, and they also give up a lot of foul shots. If the Nets can rebound and limit their turnovers and keep these shots close, they will outscore their opponent more times than not. The problem is with between the turnovers, the second shots, and then the free throws, we're just giving up way too many easy points, and we're taking less overall shots. So to me, if they can clean up the glass and limit their turnovers, to under 10 a game, they'll probably outscore them four times.
Yeah, but who's it that they have to stop though? Who's the guy?
Like I said, I think it's less about who they have to stop, and if they do those things, the rest will take care of themselves. If I was piggybacking on like one particular player, I guess you probably have to go with Brown, right? Because Tatum is going to average 30. He's going to have a 40-point game in this season, in this series where they win because of that night. So it's really the ancillary players because they don't go that deep in their scoring rotation either. White's okay and Smart, but I think Curry and Brown and hopefully at some point Simmons, our ancillary guys can outscore theirs.
Right. If it's a scoring contest between KD and Kyrie to versus Tatum and Brown, I think we could eke them out most nights. The challenge becomes if the Nets are letting Marcus Smart score. If
Eve,
Pritchard is having career
our,
highs.
our, our guys will be more efficient. Our guys will be more efficient shooting. The problem is the other team always gets so many more field goal attempts. They have to limit the second chances and the turnovers. They're just giving up too many shots between, the shot disparity is a lot to make up sometimes.
100%. 100%. Sam, elaborate on that. Go. Add on to that.
Yeah, I wanted to add on that because I think, in a lot of ways, the way that the Celtics play to me is kind of similar to give like an NFL comparison. They feel a little bit like the type of team that always, because they're so focused, because they're all on the same page, because they don't make mistakes, they usually always start out with a lead. Like if you notice a lot of their games during their run, they always started out big, and then they could basically focus on defense and put all their energy towards there, so they inevitably end up keeping the lead. I feel like, Eve, you're a big soccer fan. I feel like there's a bunch of soccer teams that do that also once they get a big lead. But the Celtics, the thing that I find funny about the analysis is that you can't compare the scoring acumen between the Nets and the Celtics. The Nets are eons better, which is why I think, and we're all kind of touching on this, is that if the Nets are actually zoned in and clicking offensively, the Celtics just don't have the horses to keep up with them. There's no way that you can tell me that. Derek White isn't that good of an offensive player. I get that Smart has been playing well, but and Jalen and Jason are not in the same stratosphere combined that KD and Kyrie are. And when you even look at all the other guys, when you add the Currys and when you add the Mills, and if you say that, even if you say Williams comes back and you say Drummond and Williams kind of cancel out their points, it's just the Nets have more firepower, which is why I think so much of it is just setting the tone and not letting them be, the NFL team that goes up 14-0, but you know that if they go down, if they go down 14-0 to start the game, they're actually in deep shit because they can't make that type of run. So that's what I find to be interesting about the whole analysis between these two teams.
Yeah, I'm gonna say if they could limit the turnovers, and they didn't do that against Cleveland, and this is a much uh, better defense, then that's a big help. But another kind of unseen issue that I don't think enough people are talking about is they're not creating offense for the others. I don't like the way it's so difficult to get Seth Curry a shot, where in Philly it seemed like they were always finding him open in the corner, open at the top of the key, like they were kicking out to him, in a way that made him effective. When he's out on the court, he's not playing great defense. So Sam, like, how do we get these other guys involved? What's missing that's keeping these guys from really getting some touches and stretching the floor?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think that the Nets have probably the two best difficult shot makers in the NBA. If you want to combine add Booker to that list, those are probably like the top three. And there does seem like there's a lot of moments where when you actually have lineups where it's just KD and then like Dragic and a bunch of other guys, the ball is moving better than when it's kind of this KD, Kyrie, my turn, your turn type of thing. And so, look, I think we've all texted about this. I think that's where Simmons comes in, because Simmons is like kind of that connector guy that if he can play, he knows how to set up an offense. I mean, he's like one of the most gifted passers in basketball. And I think in Kyrie's time in Brooklyn, if there's anything that we've seen, I think what's becoming more and more and more evident is the dude is just clearly like a 6'1" shooting guard instead of this like people call him a combo guard or even a point guard.
No, he's not a point guard at all.
Yeah,
he's been miscast by his height. He's Kobe at 6 feet.
Yeah, that's just what he is. That's what he looks for. It's his first, second, and third option in his head is shooting, and then and then he sees on passing. Whereas you can tell that KD is obviously a really gifted passer and is incredibly unselfish, which is why he never has games where he goes 8 of 32 like we've seen from Kyrie.
And I think KD walks on water. I would say he's an adequate passer. He takes some risk. He passes into turnovers a lot, but he's opportunistic. The reason why he had all those assists the other night was because they were sending doubles onto him, and then they had a third man hedging, if not playing on him completely. So he was able to pass out a double and triple teams. I'm gonna bring it back to a conversation we haven't really touched yet. But I think we've all been hinting. Say it again.
Can I chime in real quick?
Go ahead.
We can't get Curry shots because teams are okay with the Nets slipping the ball to Bruce Brown. So his points per game have gone up, but teams are willing to live with that and let him be the secondary playmaker, because they'd rather that than Curry go off for 6 threes.
That's so accurate. Yes.
The second problem is we don't rebound well and we don't get a lot of stops. So when you're taking the ball out from under your basket, or you're not getting clean offensive rebounds, you have to scramble for them. You're not getting good early offense and transition opportunities. A lot of times, if Kyrie's pushing the ball down the floor, he can get in the paint. It sucks the defense in. That opens up those kicks. But they just don't do enough of that kind of stuff. So that's why he can't get shots off. And he doesn't move well without the ball either, to be honest.
I was complimenting him for moving well without the ball. I hope it's not the Nets that kind of took that away from him.
No, it's the ankle. If you notice, since the Knicks game on the last one at the Garden, that was the last time he could move well on that ankle. So I think that is hobbling him because you can see it even in the start of the game. He gets the first shot a lot of games now. They're trying to make a conscious effort to get him in a rhythm. It's just that by the third or fourth sequence, he's hobbling.
Right.
So I'm hoping these days of rest, he can play like he played in the beginning. Because ever since he retweaked it, he ain't been looking good. So he's not even being aggressive to hunt for a shot. Because sometimes he's bringing the ball up and he's with the second unit and he's not hunting. And so I say this: we talked about this before, that Steve Nash doesn't call enough plays for even when they started out with Joe Harris. There's not no pin downs, there's no flares, no skid screens. It needs to be some of those for him and Pat. Get in their threes now from a Bruce Brown attacking the paint and kicking out. So they just got to hit the shots.
I agree. I agree. Let's talk a little bit about Ben Simmons. And fellas, let me commend you on breaking that down. That was amazing. Um, let's talk a little bit about Ben Simmons. We're all seeing the coded messages, the videos of him doing little things here and there. Um, is Ben Simmons coming back, Kool Aid?
Yeah, I think whatever the Nets show us, I like to look like the CIA or the government. When they showed us Enemy of the State and how they can basically GPS you from anywhere, they showed us in the movie they was already doing it. They just want us to know. They was preparing us. So when you show me him in a video and he's actually running and stopping on a dime, yeah, you can say he's not going full speed. But for him to even run and stop on the dime and the moving, your back is fine. Because you're not just doing that. I done tweaked my back. I done had some in where you just like, ooh, I can't make this move, that cut. I don't want to bend over. I don't want to do nothing. So for them to show he did that, he was probably moving at that pace for 2 weeks. And maybe when the media is around, they have him doing the basics. Now, what I will say with him coming back, Drummond is very key to this. Drummond is just as important as Kyrie in this series. And people may not like to hear that, but that is the truth. He's going to be the anchor and in the last line, him and Claxton. If Drummond can get us a double-double, chances are we're going to win big, but Ben Simmons will unlock Drummond as well as Seth. His presence for 15 minutes allows KD to rest, get real. I would not play them at the same time. I want KD to get some rest because he's going to have to take us home, him and Kyrie. So if you let Ben Simmons play those minutes when he go to the bench, he pushes the ball, which will create either layups and dunks for himself or open threes for our shooters. So if we are able to get that, Ben Simmons will probably average 10 assists and 8 points, and it will feel like 30.
Bam. Is Ben Simmons gonna play? And when?
I mean, all signs point to it. If I had to guess, they want to play him, and I think Game 3 will be the game. It just seems to make the most sense, particularly if they steal, let's say, Game 1. They may say, let's hold them off. I think that game is next Saturday, so it's, what is that, 9 days, 10 days until they play that Game 3. And I mean, you could just picture Barkley as he gets up to walk to that scorer's table. That place is going to erupt.
I'm gonna erupt. Pause.
Yeah, I mean, look, they need all hands on deck, and that you have to also think big picture. It's not just about getting out of this series. If he could play 4 or 5 games in this series and play, 15 minutes, getting him in the Milwaukee series, and maybe you can get 20, 25 minutes is huge.
He just fits exactly what the Nets need. He just all of the things we talk about the Nets' problems are. He pretty much could be a solution